Hey, welcome to the stream. I'm Keo, live at home. And today I'm going to be going through my overview of what the thoughts are of the game that I've been playing over the last week or so, called Terra. This is the Asian version, which has had its announcements for the server shutdowns coming up over the next day. And I just thought that a good way to send it off would be to basically just have a run through the game, play to 65, get all the Xbox achievements and stuff like that. And we're not quite sure on the extent of the shutdown, but the servers may just be transitioning to the new to the North American stack. But uh, just going to go over my like what I've been doing in the game and my progress to 65 and stuff like that, and kind of give my thoughts on how all of that went. So pretty much where I'm going to start with this is just give you a idea on the character that I created and stuff like that. So basically, I started the stream last week, and I was thinking about streaming a little bit more of it, but I decided not to because one of the things that happens is that the solo versions of dungeons don't really give a lot of experience, and you can play through the regular versions of the dungeons, but the best way to rank up was actually to do the hunts, and the hunts themselves actually appear in the Vanguard requests, and they come and go depending on where you are in the story, and they're normally 1 or 2 levels above where you are. You can kind of toggle them on and off. But they do disappear and you kind of have to move on to the next one. But the good thing about that is that you're always getting new gear, and the XP you get is better than using regular enemies to fight. So it's always pointing you in the direction where you can actually get a little bit more out of it in terms of XP and stuff like that. So you've got stuff like the weapons, for example. They appear kind of like in the even numbers of leveling. So like level 60, 62, stuff like that, you'll start to get more. Um, you'll get weapons in the odds and even ends um, of the leveling up. But then you actually get on the in between all of that, you'll actually have skills as well, which will rank up on the odd levels. So even levels generally ended up being new weapons, new armor and stuff, and then the odd levels generally ended up being skills. So for anybody watching that's interested in Terra at all, so there's a console version and a PC version. I was playing on the console version of the game on Xbox using Xbox controller. The PC version allows for mouse and keyboard, so it's a little bit more freeform in the way that you could actually play the game, but I've had to manipulate the controls a little bit to get it to how I like with the controller, so not 100%. It's not as fluid as it could be, basically. So, um, I'd have to say that the controls itself, I've had to map out the buttons to the D-pad for my combos. Now, the way the combos work is really, really interesting because instead of having to press a bunch of buttons to actually use them, you can go to change skills and you can set up a variety of chains. And then from there, you can have it perform 1 or 2 abilities depending on the cooldowns of the items. So you can actually set it up so you can do a roundhouse kick and a dashing strike and pile driver, haymaker, or and then so I mapped one of those to like the left D-pad, and then the right D-pad and the down button on the D-pad I actually mapped different chains to, and then mapped my face buttons and um, LB and RB to like support buttons and healing and stuff like that. So I actually found that there's a counter and a counter attack, and I actually set them to the left and right trigger, so where you can counter just a normal attack, and the counter attack unlocks at a little bit of a higher level. So you have to get a little bit further in to actually unlock that, I believe. But I was playing the Brawler class. So the Brawler class is what I tend to do with all of my characters in these kind of games, is actually be a hand-to-hand combat class that just has like more of a fisticuff variety of weapons. So the weapons themselves generally looked the same through the entirety of the playthrough. But I am noticing that there are a lot more, there's a little bit more variety when it comes to things like special events and stuff like that. So it looks like a lot of the customization wasn't really tied to the normal progression and leveling up of the characters, where the outfits changed as you ranked up. The the weapons generally stayed the same, and then they have things called costumes, which were more designed to, I guess, as like the loot box situation where they have the battle pass and stuff like that, where you can actually get the like different kinds of outfits, uh, which they advertise really heavily at the start of the game when you first turn it up. So you get stuff like schoolgirl outfits and um, some kind of dragony kind of like skirts. But then you can actually get custom versions of the weapons and stuff like that as well. So there are some very anime elements to it, but it's not anime so much in all the character classes, but they do just have, I guess they're more going for fun over um, anything else, because there are, quite a lot of serious aspects to it, and the story seems to be very serious as well. Although I didn't really like the characters so much, and I wasn't really there to actually do anything with the story. So I was really just going in and trying to get to level 65 as quickly as possible. But there's a lot of things that are out of place, like these glasses, for example. You can just chuck on a set of glasses that you unlock as you go. Um, Everything else generally appears on the character as you change them. Um, but that's I don't really have any other clothes or anything as an example. But there are times when most of the clothes aren't really covering anything at all. So it was always getting a bit of a chuckle showing my wife the different kinds of clothes that you can actually get with that as well. So the enemies, they kind of telegraph their moves really, really well. So I'm just gonna fly over to enemies that I were combating for some of the ranking up. You can see like you can go through and get pets in the games, and you can get mounts and stuff like that, like a lot of the other MMOs. But you'll find that you get given a lot of this stuff. So there were quite a few different ones that I just had from daily events and stuff. as they kind of popped up out of nowhere in my inventory. So, let's just go over to some of the enemies. I was just fighting these Tera things, so they're more of the rocky base enemies. When you attack them, I'm doing quite a lot of damage at the moment. You can kind of see what kind of attacks that they're doing. So it looks like he's waiting for something there. So let's just try and get him moving a little bit. And so every single move is telegraphed. And you can generally dodge and counter basically everything. And the particular class that I'm playing at the moment allows you to block and counter, and then that actually does damage to the enemy as well. So there are quite a lot of there are some unique moves to the different types of enemies, but you'll find that it's kind of mapped. The same kind of moves are kind of mapped to different enemies, so it's kind of mixed and matched and changed depending on what you're fighting. And a lot of the world bosses also have similar moves as well. So you generally know what they're going to do based on where the circle is on the ground, and what their actions are just before the... See, he did a jump, so you kind of knew that he was going to go to a different spot. So yeah, you can basically counter and dodge pretty much every move in the game. So and they always just drop basically relic fragments and stuff like that, and there's a lot of crafting tools and stuff in the game as well. So the end game itself, I have not actually spent a lot of time with. I've only really just gotten to level 65 in the last day, but I had a bit of a fly around, and there are these world events that appear all over the place, like a lot of the other games. But basically, you're looking at stuff like there's a giant whale flying in the air, and you had to fly through some rings and stuff like that to actually collect rings and then do damage to the whale, and to the other wraiths that were flying around in the air. So the end game, I mean, like the you can get world bosses and stuff like that, that I spent quite a lot of time with. I made another video on one of the harder ones in the game. And then for some reason, there's 2 full tabs for fishing and fishing supplies. And one of the comments that I've seen is basically most of the end game content, you're either doing the dungeons, doing the world events, or doing fishing. I've not actually tried any of the fishing, and I'm not actually going to try any of that right now either, but you can basically just unlock monumentous amounts of crafting tools and crystals and like that to upgrade your gear. The Battle Pass mostly just gives you a lot of the same stuff. You're getting a lot of crystals and things like that too. So you get a lot of scrolls for traveling to areas for free and stuff like that. But at the moment, I have an item that let me teleport that pretty much wherever I want. So I don't actually need to do anything, except for choose a location and teleport there for basically free, which was really good for getting to a lot of the dungeons in the game, and knocking out the achievements based on those and stuff like that. So the dungeons themselves, they're really, really straightforward. Um, in terms of the story versions of them, I haven't played any of the endgame hard stuff or anything like that. But you have to progress the dungeons in a specific order within the dungeon. So if there's a story objective, if you can, some of the areas of the maps you can actually go to different areas with just freely through the dungeons. And if you kill a certain boss, you're actually stuck and you can't actually progress any further through the dungeon because you actually have to, fulfill an objective, go do something in a different room or talk to a specific person or unlock a room and then go fight the boss when the objective comes up. There was one point where I actually just freely roamed around the dungeon and actually didn't even do the objective in the dungeon at all. And there were some bosses that I killed early, and I couldn't actually do anything else in the dungeon. And I came out to the main world, and there's an option to reset instances, but it didn't work with this particular dungeon. I actually had to come back in about 3 hours and having to wait for the enemies to respawn again to actually fight them. So there's a few glitchy little things that happen in the game in terms of progressing like that. There was also a quest that was a bit of an issue as well, where it didn't telegraph in the objectives list which objective you were doing, and it would circle about the you do one objective and it either showed the objective before or not at all, and you basically had to go online and search what the quest line was and then go through the steps because it actually was performing the steps in the right order, but it wasn't telling you what the next step was. So you couldn't go in um, and just follow the list that was on the screen. You actually had to go and look it up if you got stuck and you didn't know what you were doing with the next step. Um, so that was the only time that I really had trouble with it, and it was to unlock a specific dungeon. You had to do the event to actually do that. So um, in terms of other stuff with the world, there is a bit of music but mostly, as you can hear, there's really not a whole lot going on except for ambient noise in the background and stuff like that. And then just every now and then you'd get some odd music happening. But there is a lot of extra sounds and stuff like that. You do get wind sounds, you do get, the dragon makes his noises and stuff like that. And so the animals and pets make all their sounds. And there's quite a lot of interesting different types of pets and stuff like that too. So as you can hear, you have the music coming in now. Normally, if there's a big boss nearby as well, you can actually get that music happening. It'll tell you when there's one nearby, basically where the music changes. So the enemies, they have a very good design, a lot of them. So they are, I guess, within some of the typical enemy types that you see, and they are named similar to a lot of what the other games have, for example, but they really like to use eyes and teeth and put them in really odd places sometimes. So see, kind of walking around the world, you've seen some of these kind of enemies before, but they're kind of always like parts of people combined with spiders and different enemy types, other bugs and things like that. So you can see they all some of them kind of look human, some don't. They're all very good. And somewhat like this one here, they have a few unique attacks of their own. Like they can dig in the ground and dive up behind you and out of the ground, stuff like that. So in terms of combos, So all you have to do is press the same button, and it'll perform the combo in order just by pressing the same button. So that's one of the really, really good accessible things with this one actually. So it's the game's really, really good at that. So you just have to press the same button and it performs 3 or 4 different things, and you can have up to I think 5 or 6 different chains going at once. And you can swap between the buttons too, because sometimes with the way that the combos are set up, if you're where is it, under skills, oh, I'm just going to get attacked here, that's okay. The enemies are always aggro, so they always kind of attack you anyway, I think. So like even if you're like they're a little bit less hostile if you're high levels, but they generally, if you're in their line of sight, they'll probably attack you. So with the skills, the chain skills, because it's got use this skill or this skill, you can swap between, say, my left D-pad, my right D-pad, depending on the cooldown. Sometimes it won't keep performing the moves at all if the cooldown hasn't set up. So you basically move on to the next button, and if you've got the cooldown ready to go on the other button, you can continue the chain, but then the first one resets, so you have to wait for it to cool down again before you can start doing anything with that. So so when I got to endgame, I went from, I think, just under item level 200. You can see in the top right corner that they've got the item level there. But you're really quite low going through the dungeons, but I was managed to get through everything except for the level 60 dungeons with the gear that I had up to level 62. And then as soon as I hit endgame, there's a character called Dougal at the end that you can talk to, and they let you basically have some of the highest gear in the game. I think based on the Vanguard requests, the Vanguard requests all sit at around 65, so it doesn't give you an idea of the item level, but you do get the Vanguard tokens and stuff like that. But the instance matching, see, you've got stuff sitting at item level 439, 456, 463. So everything in there is kind of sitting at the higher end. So you can kind of see where the end game stuff is sitting. So there's quite a lot to the game. I actually really, really like it. It's very engaging, and some of the world bosses are hard. The community seems to be really strong as well, and it looks like a lot of people are happy just kind of doing what they want. And if you put in the chat that there's a certain boss in a certain area, there'll be 1 or 2 people that'll just come and help you fight it pretty much all the time. And some of those world bosses you need a little bit extra help with, depending on how your gear's set out. The Brawler class in particular is really, really, really strong. Has a lot of heavy combos, and it has some healing abilities as well. That basically with the counter and the block, you can negate all damage if you time it correctly, because it's based on pressing the button in timing with the attack to actually block it, which is actually really, really engaging as well. So that's really good. So so yes, so had a lot of fun with the game. Let's say that overall, it's a lot of people kind of say that this one's a little bit outdated, But there's actually quite a lot of modern ideas in it as well. I don't know how up to date the game is in terms of what they've actually done with it, because the game originally came out in about 2011 in Korea, exclusively, and then it came to, I believe, consoles in 2018, where there was the Asian version and the international version of that, which the Asian version doesn't seem to appear in the North American Xbox marketplace. For whatever reason, Australia had access to that Asian version on their store, so I was able to get in and do that one. So yeah, but the biomes in the are basically all your typical biomes. You know, you've got your snowy areas, you've got your lava areas closer to the end game and stuff like that. But one of the greatest things about the open world is that you don't have little areas that uh, are sectioned off with the maps. You can actually go through all of the different areas on the map and just travel from place to place to place. So actually gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of whether or not you want to fast travel to every location, if you have the money or the scrolls to do it, or if you just want to fly. And as you can see in the map in the top right, flowing between the areas give you it just automatically switches the map. So on where you are. It's very open, so it's a very stable world, I think, is the best way to put it. So pretty much this is the last I'm going to spend in the game itself today. So I'm not really going to spend much more time with Tera at all. So I really just wanted to make this video to kind of give people an idea of what kind of game it is. It's a very accessible game. If you're starting an MMO, you wanted something to play and you're not really sure what would be good, this is definitely a really good starting point. If you can set yourself up properly with your skills and stuff like that and kind of learn uh, the best way to map the controls to the way you like them. So it's not really fiddly beyond what it needs to. So, because like all MMOs, there are a lot of the same elements that you just don't know what to do with some of this stuff. And there's some of this stuff I've never even used. I don't know how to unlock the locked strong boxes. Like that might be endgame stuff, it might not be. You can go through the menus and actually try and activate them, but it doesn't give you an idea of how you actually get them unlocked. But there's a menu for basically every single item. So you can actually equip, remove crystals, which you find in the world. You can enchant them, so you can get +1, +2, +3, and so forth with the armor. So you can upgrade the skills if you need a little bit extra power. And then there's some stuff like etching and stuff like that that I've never really had anything to do with. So, but it is flexible where you can change the effects and stuff like that on the items. If you have the right tools to actually change them. So yeah. So the game has a inbuilt LFG. You can set up pretty much whatever you want. You can join a group or you can create a message. As long as you're not in a group, you can create a goal for either a dungeon or you can just leave it blank, request what kind of person you needed, and then actually just post it. When I was defeating one of the bosses earlier on, the Divine Reaver, we actually did a call out and had somebody just say, hey, put it up LFG, and they came straight over to us once they joined the group. so that was really good as well. So, but yeah, world events are telegraphed just through the menus, so you can get quite a lot just out of the menus. So, in terms of what's available for your level and stuff like that. And once you hit level 65, everything becomes available. Like there was only one or two things in here before, and now basically everything's there. So, and all of this endgame stuff, I haven't played any, like barely played any of this endgame stuff at all. There's one or two dungeons that I've run through that I was able to run through by myself solo, but it would be really good as a group because a lot of the dungeons are 3 to 5 man dungeons, so you can get quite a lot of people in one group running the content. So it's really flexible about how many people you can actually go in, and as I said, some of the dungeons you can go in by yourself. Stuff like the parcel post, they give you stuff every couple of hours, and that goes straight into your inventory. And yeah, quest logs are good. The red markers are generally the story-related missions. The way that the stories are laid out, so they're kind of laid out in sections. So the chunks are basically based more on the characters than going through an entire single storyline. Depending on your rank, you can actually, if you're rank 40 to 50, there might be one or two characters that have a storyline within that range, and you can just go to them and do their storyline. And then go back to the others. Like the Freya's Fury was the one that you needed to unlock one of the dungeons that I needed, and I'm at the end of that quest line there. But um, there was an issue with that one where you had to meet a character that met this character in I think it was the 41 quest line range. You had to do that first and then come back into unlock this quest line. So there's a couple that are tied together, but generally, if they're separate NPC characters, you can pretty much just go in and just do them separately, which is really, really good. So, but yeah, so that is pretty much the overview of the game and what I did in leveling up to 65. Um, but yeah, so it wasn't really going to be a long stream with this one in particular. Just wanted to let you know what I thought of the game, and I thought it was very, very competent, very good. You can get a lot out of it, but once you get to end game, you're pretty much just in a playground, just doing the events. Like it's not really locking you into doing too much more than having some fun with the characters, and just it's more of a social environment than anything else, really. So it's actually quite good for people that just need a place to chill. So there's a lot of people that hang out at the fishing hole in one of the maps, and wherever they pop up, they always seem to be really populated. So, but yeah. Right, well, that's going to be it for the stream. I will be streaming a little bit later on again. Looking to do probably a little bit more streaming back in Final Fantasy and stuff like that. Basically, because now that I've leveled up to 65 in this one. So that's a nice little challenge that I just wanted to put to myself. Get in there, kind of see if I can get anything out of the game, and then basically move on. So it's really good to see another MMO that's like that's been around for a very long time, where there's a lot of stuff that have crossover in terms of like a lot of the stuff is still the same in some of the modern MMOs, but I haven't really played a lot of them, and it's kind of good to get a little bit of perspective. There are certain ones that I probably won't ever start because they're just so long. But this is a nice short romp and has a like a tidy little end game. So it was just nice to kind of get in and have a bit of a go. So, but yeah, that's going to be it for the stream. And I'm Keo live at home, and thanks for watching.